Hi, Dr. Schultz here with you for criminology assignment. I'm not going to be putting this out there anywhere else other than this video, so I hope that everybody is watching it and paying attention. You might want to write down a couple of things. Here's your assignment. I want you to do a brief research paper that addresses an issue within the topic of the poverty of culture as it relates to the criminal justice system. So when we talk about the poverty culture, I don't want to hear about, in this particular paper, I'm not looking for a discussion about public defender versus privately paid for representation. I don't necessarily want to hear about why poor people end up in jail longer because they can't post bond, so they lose their job, and et cetera, et cetera. So those are certainly ramifications of having few financial resources when confronted with becoming involved in the criminal justice system as a criminal defendant. And those are some interesting topics, and there's a ton of information out there about that. But I specifically want you to look into what poverty culture is, what are some characteristics of poverty culture, and how that might play into the overrepresentation of the poor in the criminal justice system, including in prisons, okay? Because we all know that if you're a millionaire, or even if you're middle class and you get a drunk driving arrest, you're going to be able to cope with that better than if you're making $10 an hour and face those kinds of fines and legal costs and absences from work and those kinds of things. So what I'm really looking for is a discussion of whether poor people are more likely to be involved in the criminal justice system. What is their attitude within the criminal justice system? What is the impact of the family structure, for example, in the poverty culture? And I'll give you an example. When I was a young police officer, I sat down just a couple of hours before a fellow I'll just call CL. He was a juvenile. I'd known him for a couple of years since the beginning of my police career, constantly in trouble, in and out of the juvenile justice system. And he was about to turn 17, which was considered an adult in Missouri. In Colorado, it's 18, and so it'll vary from state to state. But it was his birthday the next day, and so I sat down with him, in my paternal way, and I said, CL, tonight at midnight, you're going to be 17. That means you're going to be an adult, which means that a lot of the stuff that you've gotten away with, you're not going to get away with anymore, and I just don't want to see you in prison. Well, CL, I thought, was listening to me, but the reality is, within 3 months, I had arrested him on a weapons charge, which could send him to prison. And so when I arrested him, I said, CL, don't you remember we talked about that? And he said, if I go to prison, my dad's there, my uncle's there. So it was going to be like a family reunion to him. It was not a big deal. Now, if somebody from my immediate family was going to go to prison, oh my gosh, that would be embarrassing, humiliating, traumatic. But for CL, in his world, that's just going to happen. It's one of those things, right? So the question is, if he had grown up in a middle-class family with middle-class values, would his whole attitude about that situation have been different than growing up in poverty? So one of the questions, of course, is there poverty culture? Are people that are generationally poor, in other words, they're poor, their daddy was poor, their daddy's mama was poor, are the things that are associated with poverty, particularly generational poverty, are they cultural artifacts that play a great deal into how people are prone to get into the criminal justice system, how they react within the system, and how they're treated by the system, kind of on the end of that. But I really want you to explore poverty culture, the idea of poverty culture. So your search engine, your article indexes, it should include poverty culture as part of your topic research. Now, at the end of that research, you'll have a note full of notes, and I want you to do a couple of things. One of those is to cite your sources, and please do that even if you don't make huge references to those sources or quote them largely. If you get any information that's not out of your own experience, from an article or something online or whatever, cite that source. And I would like you to use APA style for citing that source. And if you don't know what that is, go on the internet, plug in your source, and say, use APA citation. It'll come up for you and you can copy and paste. Now, that's the only thing I want you to copy and paste. I don't want to see in your research paper that you submit to me anything that came from another source that did not get attributed to that source. All right? Look up plagiarism if you don't know what I'm talking about. If you just cut and paste off of something you see online, put it in there, make it appear like it's your own words or own thoughts. First of all, I'm going to discover that, and secondly, it's not academically honest. And thirdly, it's a violation not only of the standards for this course, but for the college, and you could face some consequences. So I don't expect you to do that. It's just some people are kind of unclear on that, and some people think that somebody that's been teaching for 30 years might not know that they're fudging a little bit on their paper. So I just want you to be academically honest. And if you come to a conclusion, if you end up having an opinion that comes out of your research, it's okay to state that. I don't mind you stating an opinion if two things are true. One is that it's based on facts and not just pulling out of your ears, and it's a logical progression to get from what those facts are to what your conclusion or hypothesis or opinion might be, right? So right now you're a criminology student. Right now you're a college student. Right now you're being taught by somebody that's got 40 years in the business with 5 books published and a national reputation and between 30 to 75,000 followers in my Police One column, all right? So you're not the average person on the street. So your opinion about poverty culture in the criminal justice system ought to be much clearer, much more defensible, much more fact-based, have a much greater foundation than if I talk to 10 random people on the sidewalk, right? I just say that because it's my pet peeve, that when I read something that a student writes and they say, well, I feel this or I think that, and it's no different than an opinion from somebody on the street, they're not exhibiting to me that they've learned anything from their studies of this topic. They've just got an opinion, and you're taking a course and you've been studying this thing for 7 weeks, and your opinion's really not any different or any more fact-based than somebody on the street, then what's the value of your education? So that's my pet peeve. So again, if you come up with a conclusion or come up with a recommendation or come up with an opinion, then it needs to be fact-based and provable through logic, or at least supportable through logic. All right, I told you what the topic is, told you what the topic isn't. I'll tell you what the due date is, November 17th. If you would like to submit a draft to me before that, say at the latest November 10th, then I will look at that and give you some suggestions and some feedback that will probably improve your grade and will be a learning experience for you. You don't have to send me a draft, but part of what you're paying for is what EWC has provided for you in exchange for your tuition, and that is somebody who is an expert in the field. If you don't want to take advantage of that and your access to me, That's entirely up to you, because it's your life, your time, your money. But I'm just saying, I'm here for you, and you might as well take advantage of it if you have any question in any area that you think I might have some expertise in. I'm a first responder chaplain. I've been an emergency manager, been a police chief, detective. I'm a registered psychotherapist in the state of Colorado. Been a law enforcement trainer, a full-time academy trainer. I'm a municipal judge. You've got a resource here, and if you don't use it, that's up to you. But I don't want you not to use that resource, me, because you think I'm not inviting it, or that I would resent it, or you're not worth my time, because none of that's true. I'd be happy to respond to any questions. And that's true about this assignment. It's true about the material that you're reading. If you think, well, I don't understand where that's coming from, I don't quite get that, or something you read in the paper, something that's going on in your own life, something that somebody asked you, and you say, well, I know a guy that could probably answer that, and he's Dr. Schultz, my professor. So just use me. I'm here. I'm like a dusty book on the shelf. If you don't want to take it off and read it and learn something, that's fine. But if you do, it's right there. Couldn't be more accessible to you. And by the way, if you want to do that by texting, by a phone call, by email, or if you want to go one-on-one on a Zoom conference or a Facebook Messenger video call, happy to do that as well, and we'll arrange a time when we can do that. So again, that's enough about my accessibility. Topic: poverty culture as it relates to people being involved in the criminal justice system. Due date November 10th. No, scratch that. Draft due the 10th. Draft is optional. Due date for the complete assignment is the 17th. 2 to 5 to 7 pages. In terms of length, I don't like to make a word standard or a pages standard, but people kind of like to know where they're going direction-wise and how to edit. And I don't want you to fluff. If you've got 2 pages of really great material and you bullet pointed it and you've just given everything that you think you need to give me in 2 pages, I don't need you to put a bunch of garbage in there for the next 3 pages to make it a 5-page paper. If it wasn't a 5-page paper, then leave it as it is. 2's a little on the skinny side. If you're a really great writer and really pound that stuff right in that 2 pages, then that's great. Pages is kind of an old-fashioned analog kind of thing, right? So if you're gonna put this on the discussion board, which is one way you can convey that to me. I don't necessarily need people to see it and reply to it, so you may not want to do that, but if that's comfortable for you, that's a fine medium. You can put it in the body of an email, and you don't have to necessarily format it into a paper, or you can write it as a typical research paper and send it to me as an attachment in the email. The only format thing that I do want you to do is to make sure that you do an appropriate citation when you cite material. Notice I didn't say if you cite material, I said when you cite material, and use APA guidelines for doing that. If you choose, APA is generally accepted in our field of study. If you are required by some other course of study and you've gotten real familiar with some other type of notation, you can use that. I'm very flexible on that. The most important thing is that you do your research, that you address the topic, that you write about it cogently in a way that's supportable and logical and informative and new, so that you can actually teach me something about the topic, and that you get it to me in a timely manner. Those are the main things, okay? So feel free to reach out to me. Get your paper in by the 17th. You can send me a draft by the 10th if you'd like some feedback on it. It can be in any format, whether it's on the discussion board or email, whatever, or an attachment. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever, reach out to me and tell me could you give me a call, or could you respond to this email question, or can we go camera to camera and on the Zoom application as part of your learning platform there, and we can have a little bit of a discussion that way. Well, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to. I've taken a little bit less than 20 minutes of your time, so I'll go ahead and cut this off and upload it to the announcement board. Again, questions, comments, inquiring minds want to know. Let me hear from you. So, look forward to hearing what you have discovered. And by the way, I've unlocked all of the quizzes except for the final. So if you want to go ahead and go through those things, the course is pretty much put on autopilot. I've given you a couple of discussion board assignments to kind of interact with each other a little bit, and then this reaching out to you via video to offer an additional opportunity for you to learn and to show me that you're studying and interested and getting some information. So that'll just about wrap it up. The semester's coming to a close very, very quickly, so get all those quiz banks completed. I'll unlock the final when it's appropriate, and this will probably be your last writing assignment, and I might put another discussion board topic up there just to make sure that I poke everybody and see if they're awake. So pay attention to the announcements, and hope you have a great week.